We'll do a show.
This is 2OF Entertainment.
And here we is. We are not live, but close enough.
We're still alive, I guess.
Yeah, we're still
I think
alive.
I'm still alive.
Yeah.
Oh, it's been a week, eh? We're getting into spring here a little bit. A little bit of
Very
weather
nice.
warming up, and we got more artists. We're booked solid. I can't believe it.
That's right.
We got artists. Yeah.
Well, because they in the show, they love it. It's all you. You're the star. They know. They want to be with you.
Have to wear the little crown or something, star.
Yeah. Going on, or you just wear a red tie and a white shirt, and
I
you'll
should get a little bow tie. That would do.
a little dicky bow. That's what they call it. I didn't know that. I was in Ireland, and the guy goes, "I love your dicky bow," and I was like, "Excuse me, sir?" And he's like, "Your bow tie." I was like, "Oh, okay." And then from that, the Irish Prime Minister and I had a 2-hour dialogue. We were set for 5 minutes, but because I wore a dicky bow, we talked 30 minutes on dicky bows, and then we talked 90 minutes on business because of the dicky bow. He's like, "You're the only one wearing a dicky bow," and I'm like, "Yes, I am," and that was it. So there you go, my dicky bow story.
You gotta have a good one. That's a good one. Yeah.
There you go. So
well, we have a good one this morning as well.
We do. We have Mary, and she paints bears, so I'm very excited. So I've seen the bears, so I'm excited about that and other things, but I saw the bears and I got excited.
Don't give it all away.
I'm sorry. All right, she doesn't paint anything. It's just blank canvas, everybody. Never mind.
Bears.
Gotta watch.
Anyway, Mary Friesen, she's from the Niagara area in Ontario, and lover of, I guess, the country of Gruppe 7, which is quite popular for a lot of artists to paint. But she's really found a way of painting it in her own way, and kind of a watercolor and acrylic painter, and she paints a very, I guess, a wholesome. Like it feels like you want to be in those spaces, or you just say like you want to visit. It's almost like the travelogue. So in other words, not drawing every leaf branch on the tree, but just the feeling of the area, and you say, "Gee, I should go there." And I'm going to talk to her about her. She's got a couple of 3 books published, and she's working on a few more, and so she's a very busy lady. Cool. And so we're going to talk to her about her art journey and about her work and what kind of things are going on in her life here, and see what we can talk to her about. Let's bring Mary in.
Hey, Mary, welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
On a very sunny day in Niagara.
Why all of a sudden she has an Irish accent? Before she spoke perfect English. All of a sudden she's
talking the Irish Prime Minister.
Okay, I was going to say, but yeah, I thank you very little. But I thought she was drinking, and I got excited. I was like, "Oh, we're going to drink on the show today," but that's okay. Mary,
just Perrier.
We are drinking. I'm drinking.
We are drinking,
yes.
But I'll go off there. You have a wonderful interview. I will see you at the end to ask my questions. Nobody cares what I have to say. I just want to enjoy the Bears, and I will see you guys in about 45 minutes to an hour. Enjoy your interview.
Hang in there for the Bears. Okay. Good morning to you.
That's called a prologue.
Yes. Lovely studio, and behind you there, you're sitting in a sunroom. Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a gorgeous.
This is what happens when you have a pandemic and your trip to Italy is canceled. You put a glass room on the back of your house.
Well,
which is a great studio.
It sounds very Italian to me to live in a glass studio. No throwing rocks, but no, but it's. Sounds like it could get a little warm in there, though, in the summer.
The sun heats it up really quickly. It was freezing this morning because it was snowing this morning, and already it's nice and warm. So, yeah.
It's nice to have that. I don't have I have more of a north light in my studio, but
perfect.
That's it, but not for heat. I don't get a lot of heat out of the sunlight, but that's why we have furnaces and things, I guess, or in the winter, summertime, you open the door if you need fresh air. But anyway, we had a quick conversation the other day, and I looked at some of your work, and I've seen your work for a while on Artists in Canada, but I've seen a lot of work of Gruppe 7 styles of work, and the influences in the area you live is so strong. Like, when an artist goes to the North Country, especially in the fall. Oh gosh, forbid. The palette is there, the whole color palette. I mean, they're just enamored by. It's really hard to not paint the iconic Northern Ontario,
Mhm.
and in kind of a group of seven manner. But yeah, you love that group of seven, correct? You grew up in
I I love the Group of Seven. I think I was attracted more to the stories of what was the things that were going on in their lives at the time that um, I guess you could call him their sponsor, Dr. McCallum, introduced them to the Algoma area, which a lot of the paintings that you have today are from the Algoma area in Northern Ontario. Um, but what brought them to there was illness and grief. Lauren Harris had just lost a brother in the war, and he and J.Y. Jackson were grieving the loss of Tom Thompson. J.H. McDonald was recovering from a stroke, so this doctor sponsor decided that they really needed some respite, some Algoma therapy. So this is what launched them into painting in Algoma. It was really this doctor.
Yeah.
I think even beyond the Group of Seven, I'm even more attracted to the women who went north and painted in that area. Yvonne McCaig Hauser, the photographer Isabel McLaughlin, they did phenomenal work. And they covered some of the really industrial, barren areas around Cobalt and the north before the Group of Seven did. So I think I was even more enamored with the women who went and painted. A lot of color, a lot of northern scenery, very stylized, beautiful work, but they're not really, they don't get the attention that the Group of Seven did.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think women are slowly now making inroads on some of the social commentary, and
Mhm.
the visual commentaries that were coming now. But yeah, it was the day. It was, I guess, the man's world in painting. Um, it was tough enough as it was to slug it out in that painting world, and I mean, it happened in Europe as well. Men who had that, I guess the Impressionists and the
Mhm.
Post-Impressionists and all those. Those are the ones that tended to have that. Maybe the voice was louder. They had I
Yeah.
guess, more of a
And
presence.
their voices were more respected. I mean,
Yeah.
I have to say that it was only a couple of years ago that I became familiar with the Beaver Hall Group, who were contemporaries of the Group of Seven out of
Right.
Quebec and Savage.
Yeah. No,
Maybe,
there are pockets across Canada
yeah,
of those strong groups. I think there was the group of 11 out of Toronto, and there
yes.
was a group of we had I think there was a group of five, something five out of Regina, and they're abstracted artists. So
Mhm.
there's quite a few groups that gathered together to get out their message in their painting style and their way and their vision of Canada and their vision of what art was meaning to them and how their expression, the Jack Bushes of the day and the, you know, yes, Lauren Harris, but there were other people that were making commentary. But I'm gonna start up and get Stephen to start up our first image, and we'll continue our conversation here.
Uh,
Here we go. This is a lovely vista. I mean, usually vistas are horizontal. This one's this long, narrow vista of the river system, the lake system from the north. Beautiful piece. Can you tell us a little bit? Yeah, we talked a little bit about how do you go into these kind of journeys and gather this information, like for you to paint. So you paint not necessarily on location, but you do photography. Is that what I'm saying
a
initially?
lot of photography, a lot of 8x10 sketches. I was able to take quite a bit of equipment in here because this is the Agua Canyon, north of Sault Ste. Marie. So it's 114 miles into the wilderness. So I knew once I was there, I'd be there for a week, and I was in a boxcar for that time period. And so I was able to take acrylics and pastels and my watercolors. I had a small easel, so I was able to roam all around the canyon. And this particular image, it's funny because A train comes in around noon each day from the Sioux. It's called the tour train. Niagara Canyon tour train, really popular in the fall, and carries about 800 people at its height. And it arrives at noon, and you have 800 people running around the canyon getting all kinds of photo ops, and up and down these 350 steps that take you to the top of the canyon for this vista. And then by 1 o'clock, the train leaves, heads back down south, and it's just me. There are 2 park rangers off in kind of a bunker, so I really didn't see much of them. But this allowed me to see what the tourists don't see. It allowed me to see the shadow, the light upon the canyon walls, beautiful purple mauve shades against the canyon walls in the evening. So it was an experience. It was really wonderful.
Yeah. So you got to your lodging was a boxcar.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the original boxcar of the Gruppe 7 is there. They use it as a souvenir shop, so I just didn't even want to go into it when I was there. But I had a generator I could turn on, so I had a bit of light and heat at night if I wanted it, but I basically didn't use it.
Yeah.
And I had a little cook area, and a bunk bed to sleep in, so it was comfortable. It was luxury.
Out there, yeah. Otherwise, you're in a tent, and
yes,
yeah. No, it's nice to have those, and so they've made that into like a little bunkhouse.
No, you can no longer get the camp car that was there. Sadly, I would love to go back, but it's basically you have to go in tent now if you want to stay in the Niagara Canyon. I think that's the only way.
Wow. But it's a beautiful feeling. I mean, I think and trying to find it to do it your own way. This is, I guess, what I was prefacing in the beginning was you're overwhelmed with the same area that a lot of them tromped around in and were famous for. And you kind of go, it's hard when you follow in the footsteps of someone who's made such a big, wide path.
Mm-hmm.
And you try to find your own pathway and understanding, especially if you've read their books and looked at their imagery, and you've gone to the museums and galleries and seen and studied their works. And you work mostly in acrylic and watercolor?
I do a lot of pastels.
Oh, pastel.
And I love pastel because I think at the heart I'm a colorist. You can't really tell it from this, but from some of my paintings, it gives me an unlimited palette. And it's so soft and beautiful to work with that I favor pastels. I enjoy watercolors, but I go back to acrylics primarily. I used to work in oils, but I guess I'm an impatient sort of a person, and I like quick drying. And I know that sounds very absurd to a lot of artists, but I like quick drying. So it's I like.
Yeah, you probably just need to sort of do it like Monet did it, and when he was painting I guess the famous church that he painted, he had like, I don't know, half a dozen paintings on the go at the same time for the different times of day of light that fell on the church. So you just move from one and hopefully they're dry the next morning when you start over again on the left side, and you go across the page and start working on your work a bit, especially in oil. But
you asked about, you mentioned going into a place that has been painted and painted and painted. But I think my whole endeavor in this particular, I went off for a whole month by myself. And I think my whole endeavor, what I really wanted to do is to learn how to see the unique colors at different times of the day, to pick out, the red in a landscape, the purples, the colors, the pigments that other people might look at and they just don't hone in on that particular shade. My whole endeavor was, okay, I'm going to learn how to see better.
Part of this, what I've learned, is that a lot of people don't stay in one place long enough to see the colors of that area. So in other words, like that tour that comes in and then leaves, and then you stay behind. They didn't get to see the light at the end of the day like you are going to see. So they'll never experience that moment. They only experience the moment everybody else sees with the
And
bright
that was
sunlight.
the character of Agua. It was the color was the character of Agua.
Yeah.
And I look at paintings as stories, and I look at the landscape as a character.
Right. Yeah. So is this the train
That's the
that
train.
goes up?
That's the few of the people who are getting off the train, and this is a watercolor.
Yeah.
Just
Beautiful,
down from my
beautiful.
boxcar.
You know, it has that still fresh movement feeling. It feels like it's loose, but it's still structured. You know, it's got a really nice. I want to be there. You know, it's a nice, warm, sunny day, and it's people are waiting for the train, and yeah, it's a lovely. I guess a keepsake and a remembrance at this point now in your life when you look back and see you can remember that day. You know, do you remember painting this piece? Like,
Oh, vividly. I remember painting the piece. And I think that maybe it is for a lot of artists that painting to me is less commercial and it's more about memory. It's more about intensifying memory and retaining sharp memories of a particular time in your life that you can return to. You can write in a journal and you can go back to the written word, and it kind of reinvigorates the feelings that you had in the moment. But even more so, if you're writing, plus you're doing a fast painting, you're creating even more of an intense, varied, expansive memory.
Right.
So it's mnemonic. It helps to remember.
Yeah. So do you write about your works then each year?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I'm engaged right now with a couple of university programs, finishing off both a memoir that incorporates some of these paintings and a historical fiction that takes place in Northern Ontario, because that's where I grew up, in a small mining town, Coppercliff, just outside of Sudbury.
Yeah.
You talk about bleak beauty. There is a bleak beauty there.
Yeah. You are. Well, yeah. Once you get north of the lakes, the big lakes, it gets the terrain is beautiful. Beautiful terrain up there. And we will get back to our conversation about. So you have a couple of books published already, and you are publishing more.
I have. This one is, if you can see it, it's Niagara Seasons, kind of coffee table book that is a whole year of going through the seasons of Niagara.
Okay.
With photography and with paintings, and I also did my first memoir with one of my little watercolors on the front, Home from Here. Do
you encourage artists to do that too, as well?
Any creative outlet. And I think one expands on the other, one improves the other. If you're playing with words and creating color and intensity in words, then you can translate that into paintings. One feeds into the other.
And looking through some of the, I guess I'll just say some of the Gruppe 7 as a generality of some of their books, and sometimes they'll include a little thumbnail sketch and different things in there, and their little notes, because it was a quick thing. The sky would be alizarin or whatever. They would mark out what colors just in writing, right on top of the sketch, so they could remember how those shadows on the walls of the canyon were, how the vibrance of the colors. So they were just like little snippets, and they didn't have a camera really to take their photos with them. They were doing verbal references for them when they got back to the studio or to the camp where they might work on a piece, But
they also portrayed each other in words. When I'm looking at this, I'm thinking of J.H. MacDonald, who wrote this little snippet of Lauren Harris and McCallum going off to paint. They had a velocipede, one of those little things that goes on the railroad track that you pump. And they were both on top of this thing, and Lauren Harris's dog is racing after them, and Lauren Harris is singing. So that visual of putting in words what J.H. MacDonald was portraying of the joy that they had in the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, that colors the place.
Yeah, it does. And I think that enriches the moment. That's what
Mm.
people want. So when I guess I encourage this. I mean, these conversations are about you and me talking about this, but for themselves, people looking at this and saying, how does that reflect with me? Like, what do I see in, say, this picture that's up here in the moment? How does that reflect with me? Do I get the same feeling that you got when you painted it? And I think they're getting close to it with these moments. They're fresh enough that they can, it's not like a travel log, but it's sort of like, I want to be there. I sometimes say, I'd like to experience that type of thing. So,
And how much happier can an artist be than feeling that somebody wanted to go to the place that they were trying to represent?
have you stood on the places where some of the Group of Seven painted from?
Yes, absolutely. Many, many. And there's a
Were
couple.
Were they looking over your shoulder while you were doing the painting?
Well, sometimes it was just shocking to stand and look at Bridal Veil Falls across the river and know that they at one point stood there and looked at the same thing. It was a wonderful feeling.
Yeah. No,
Lake Superior.
Yeah. Yes, can be breezy, windy all the time. Yeah. It is a big lake, and it's a nice, the rocks and the water and the sky. I mean, there's a shoreline, but really I don't know. Can you tell us a little bit about that moment or feeling of painting this piece? Like the reason I just see the shapes, and you see this one little wave crashing against the shore in there, and there's these, I guess, the moment of just trying to figure out how you felt when you're painting this thing. Was the wind really ripping in your hair when you I guess you took photos initially, right? Is that so?
I took photos, but I also sketched. It was a long drive from Sault Ste. Marie to Rossport with many, many stops. So there was a range of vistas, and what captivated me most were the colors in the rocks.
Yeah.
The burnt siennas, almost the red shades, vermilion. And I have to say that this vista across with the green tree slope, that probably took me back to my first inspiration to paint. I mean, I was a sixth grader in Miss Higgins' class, and we were told we had to do a landscape, and my parents had a very similar landscape to this one on the wall, and I added my impression of a voyageur in their canoe on the shoreline, and that ended up sitting on the blackboard at the back, the little rim, for a long time. And I think that was the moment that I felt like I wanted to paint, that I felt proud of painting.
So it came to you in an early part of your life to be an artist.
Mm-hmm.
So you've kind of always wanted to be an artist. Was that?
I took pleasure in it. I didn't go that way as far as a career. I was a psychotherapist all my working life. But this was a wonderful, you leave work and you have something to invest yourself in totally, to distract yourself totally. Yeah.
Do you feel that your occupation helped you understand, I guess, the psychologies of some of the things that are happening within a painting? So if you went to somebody else's painting and you looked at that, you try to find the feeling that they had when they painted their work, or can you, like, you know what I mean? Like, can that influence how you paint, like your profession that you had all your life?
Possibly. I'm not sure specifically. When you were saying that, I think what came to mind is I think I can look at artists by other art by other artists and have a sense whether they were immersed. They were within themselves. They were totally within their heads, within their emotions, and that's what's coming out in the painting. I think I can have a bit of a sense that they were able to paint intuitively, versus just trying to create a representation of what's out there, but it doesn't really connect with something deep inside.
Yeah.
I'm not sure whether that makes any sense.
It does 100%. I always try to encourage artists to do the same kind of thing, is just trying to find that moment. Like occasionally you get those moments where, that it's automatic. It just happens. You can't, within minutes and hours, you finished a major piece that you say, I can't actually do anything more to it. I nailed it. And then you try to get back to that moment again. It's really hard to replicate so you can hit it every time, right? And it just takes a lot of work, but also inner feelings about how do you put yourself into a piece of work.
I mean, how do you decide what to paint? I mean, it is very psychological. How do you decide what you have to paint?
Yeah.
That you just have this moment where you're really connecting with something. So that's deep, that's inner, that's psychological. You could probably choose 10 other scenes to paint, but it's that one that really stirred you. And you have to be stirred before you can pick up your paintbrush and do something with it.
It's sometimes tough to get motivated. I guess if that's lack of words, that's kind of a word to use. And motivation of, how do I get up off that couch and go to the studio and do something productive? But to some people,
psychotherapist or psychologist would say that motivation follows activity. It doesn't precede it.
Well, I think it can start by just writing journals.
Mm-hmm.
It can start by the verbal conversation with somebody about something that can inspire as well. Writing can do it as well. That's a nice physical thing that you can go back to and say, oh, I did write that down, didn't I? Oh, yeah, that's sometimes I'll do writing and I'll go back and read. Did I write that? And it's just, yeah. Anyway, beautiful. Here we go. Here, this is Niagara Falls. This one.
This is my home turf.
Yeah, Niagara on the Lake.
No, Niagara Falls.
Niagara Falls.
We're half an hour away from Niagara on the Lake, but that's at the Niagara on the Lake. It's at the end of the Niagara River, and Lake Erie is at the top of the Niagara River. So this is smack dab in Niagara Falls. When my husband Rudy and I first came to Niagara Falls, we both were teachers in those first few years. And my school was up here. You see the falls. My school was up a tall slope or the escarpment, sitting on top. I could look out my third floor window and my students down on this scene, down on the cascade rushing over the lip of Niagara Falls. I think it's the most beautiful classroom in the world.
It would be. It would be. I remember going to Niagara Falls as a kid. It was a school bus load of us in grade 6 class. And I can't imagine taking that many grade 6s to see Niagara Falls, but we did. We all lived in Toronto in the day. And that was a day trip. It was a big deal. It was a big deal. It was very powerful in the day because even by the fence, I mean, you could slip through that silly guard fence, you'd be gone. But they let us, a lot more free reign.
You were not there in the wintertime. In the wintertime, the whole region around the falls is coated with a thick coat of ice.
Yeah. No, we weren't there. It was early summer, like late spring, and if I remember right. It wasn't a fall trip. It was a spring. It's been a long time ago. It's a nice feeling, though.
A long time ago. Can you imagine what it was like for the first people who saw the falls? Because at this point, hydroelectric takes a lot of the water from flowing over the falls. They would have had the full impact of a tremendous pouring of water over the falls. And I can't even imagine what that must have been dumbfounding.
Yeah, especially when your canoe got to the edge of that and you think, oh my, how do I turn around? There's there's portaging for sure on this
point of no return.
Yeah, pretty much it's sort of the old days with the guy in the barrel. He used to go over the falls in a barrel. He used to do some crazy things. But I think did we not just have a tightrope walker here 15 years ago?
Yes, we did. Yeah, I can't remember his name, but that wasn't long ago, and I could not bring myself to watch it. That was just too terrifying.
Yeah, he was one of the not one of the circus performers' families.
Yes,
I can't
yes.
remember what it was, but I think, but now it's all about the Falls Casino, and that's what it's about. Here we go. Here's a nice entangled. Now this was very J. McDonald's. Like he loved the Tangled Garden and a lot of those beautiful paintings of texture.
Hmm.
Of the
Love
space.
Tangle Garden. This is up in Halliburton. As often as I can, I go up and take painting courses at the Halliburton School of Art and Design, which is phenomenal. This particular time, I took a photograph. Clearly, it wasn't in these colors. And there was a moment in class where my color palette is phthalo blue and alizarin crimson and burnt sienna, and get all kinds of shadings there. So this is not my palette whatsoever. And I looked at what I created the next day with these blood red trunks. And John Leonard was the instructor at the time, and he came up behind me and he said, "You want to tell me what that means?" And to me, it was, it's like, okay, get into the psychological meaning behind your painting. It was a moment. You have the two trees and you have the roots connecting. And it suddenly dawned on me, I was adopted as a baby. In my early 30s, I was able to have a connection with my birth mother. And what I ended up saying to him was, I think this is the connection between the two families, my adoptive family and my birth family, and a very visceral feeling for me connecting those two.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. There's deep meaning behind the pieces of work, like for an artist, a lot of times, and a lot of times they're psychological. You just do them. They're not premeditated as much as you'd like to think they were, and you go back and you revisit it. Sometimes the idea is sparked by, like you said, another person looking at your work. Yeah, and you go, oh, yeah, maybe that is about that. You don't know.
If
Your
you had
mind's
not asked the question, would I have come up with the story connected with it? I don't know.
So now the piece becomes really personal.
Yes.
That's still a keeper. You can't sell it, or do you?
It's not a huge thing for me. The commercial part has never been a huge thing to me. It's simply about just the enjoyment of creating. But this one I keep.
Yeah, for sure. But it's one of those paintings that could mean a lot to an organization that finds adopted children their birth mothers and birth families, to say, maybe a large, reproduction or a print of that would look good on their wall to replicate, what they talk about in themselves, like helping families get connected together. So it's just thinking, it's kind of it's a very nice feeling. And I didn't get that when I looked at it. I looked at these two branches and that, and I said, that's a great response.
A little clarity to it. Actually ended up that my birth mother was a relative of my adoptive father. So the two families were, genetically related. That is, I think that's that's the power for me behind it, is that discovery. Yeah.
Well, that's a nice discovery. It really is. And like you said, I don't think I would want to sell it either. As long as you're around, you'd like to say, that's a great keepsake and remembrance. I mean, I think as artists, we need those things around us. We can't sell everything that's on our walls. Sometimes I've got a few pieces that I won't sell. They're just kind of special moments. But whether my kids like them or not later on, when time comes, it's up to them. But
then again, you get into the problem of creating gallery walls in your house because you have so many paintings, you don't know what to do with them.
I've seen houses, they kind of have a salon style about them. Literally floor to ceiling, 8 feet of it, just a whole texture. Basically it's storage room on a wall. You cannot respond to individual pieces without space around them. They're really hard to, when you crammed everything together. It's sort of like looking at I don't know. It's for me, it's too much. I need separation between pieces to understand what's going on. But do you paint? Do you paint in a series at all, or do you do that?
No, I've
You
never. No, I don't think I ever have.
So when you have a show,
Series.
that you don't have a series of Algoma, right? For instance, or do you have a
Okay,
specifically in the
if you're
fall?
talking about a theme, but a series in terms of a series of still lives, I haven't done that. But certainly, if it's been a work that's taken place over a year, and I have 10 that are related in theme or place,
Yeah,
location, landscape, then yes, I have
yeah,
done that.
yeah.
Eastern
Well,
townships, out east, northern Ontario. Yeah.
it's nice to have that, a sense of place and moment
Mhm.
for a lot of pieces. Although, some artists say, no, I don't want that. I just paint. I don't want to, I guess, try and seek out the favorite moment of that piece. They just want to, I don't know if the words replicate. I think maybe it's more, um, because replicating is different than creating keepsakes.
Mhm.
They kind of, can you talk to us about the building of this piece? And I'll call it building. It's kind of these shapes. They're different than your other shapes. There's something going on here that is different. Can you
This is
reflect?
a watercolor again, along the shore of Lake Superior. That bush with the crimson tones
Mm,
in it certainly caught my attention.
mm,
Rock formations along Lake Superior are just endlessly appealing to me.
yeah.
Um, but this had a nice variety of sandy area rocks and foliage, as well as the lake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's lovely.
Oh,
It's-
yes, dead wood, drowned wood, drowned trees. That's the, if
What
you
it
okay,
is.
you asked about a series. So I guess that's one thing that has always appealed to me are these areas that have drowned trees in them.
It's probably
And
the gray that is suck the kind of the life out of the tree, and
yeah,
it creates a starkness. Actually, not a starkness. It's probably a separator between. Look at the color above it and
mhm,
below it. Fireweed and the grass is in the foreground.
mhm.
In the fall, you need those breathing spaces. If it's too much color all over the page, that's one thing. But I love these three different bands of color in here. It's a different look. It's different feeling than your rocks in the water and those things. It's that warm, cool feeling.
This is a
Uh,
lot busier than a lot of my paintings because I got scumbling and I just went at it. So this whole foreground is I was just having so much fun scumbling along with my brush, and I do like the purple moody background.
it is busy, but it isn't. If you kind of squint and look at it, it kind of it just blurs together
Mm.
three beautiful color bands. The white trees, they give you a bit of, not so much, they keep you within the page, so you're not always just
Mhm.
traversing left and right. You're kind of, you've got some stopping points, and it's
Yeah.
sort of like the first two trees. It's saying, look at this section, and move over to the next one, and look at that piece. And they're beautiful little. Um, I guess they're just these plays on color. It's, I guess, a play on color, and
Why is it I think too that there's so much character in dead trees? You know,
there is a lot of
even
character.
more than in live trees, even more in than trees with fully leaf branches. There's real character in deadwood.
Yeah, well, you'll need to dig back into your psychology
What
background
does
and
that
figure out
mean?
why.
Hmm. Hmm.
Tap into it. But I think Deadwood actually has an awful lot to say. I think as far as texture goes, and it's a living tree is telling you really about the moment. A dead tree really is telling you about what the moment was before. So
Hmm.
it's giving you the afterlife a little bit. I think that's what I get from those things when I paint. And see, you
Yeah,
know,
I
it,
agree.
things are a bit more severe, and things have happened. Whether it's flooding or
Mhm.
fire, or I think we go back to Gruppe 7. I see some beautiful paintings of some fire kill areas that they've painted.
Yes.
Uh, and there's just stubble and sticks sticking out of the ground over top of a carpet of beautiful color. And you kind of, oh, it's just the texture in that is just so unexpected. And you
Mhm.
look at it and you say, wow, but it also is a little bit about, I guess, recovery of the land,
Mhm.
and how nature is kind of resilient. Do you respond that way about nature a little bit in your work?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
what you were saying about them moving into areas that had been burned over and finding beauty, I have to wonder how much of that ability to find beauty in the burned over areas had to do with they had just come back from um, painting First World War scenes, which were
yes,
disturbing. And yet,
different
uh-huh,
different kind of burnt feeling. Some of those European feelings at a battlefield and that were stripped. There wasn't a tree up, and if there was, it was just a little twig, and it was blackened and
mhm.
blood everywhere, and it
But
was
if they hadn't seen that and been exposed to that, like A.Y. Jackson, would he have been able to move into this Northern Ontario burnt over landscape and seen beauty and potential in it? I sort of wonder about that.
yeah. I don't think we'll know that. I mean, I can't
Yeah.
imagine the psychological state they were in. No wonder some of them just absorbed themselves into the beauty of and just went and hid and
Hmm.
got out of the way. I mean, 4 years of that war was brutal. Um, but it was a beautiful, nice sunny day. I got you. It's just one of those special spots that
Very
I,
special,
yeah,
very special.
yeah.
This is Grace Lake, and Group of Seven painted Grace Lake many times, mostly from up above.
Mhm.
The surrounding La Cloche Mountains with the quartzite hills. You quite often see them looking down on the tiny little islands in the lake. But I do know that A.Y. Jackson likely painted on the same little island I was sitting on, quite possibly. This is a pastel that I did from holding up on this little island and, spending a day canoeing around Grace Lake. It was wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, those are really beautiful days. They don't happen every day. Those lakes can get kind of blowy in the
Mhm.
summertime. They get a little rough to be on, but
Mhm.
nice when they're a nice day. Yeah, no, it has a very nice summer feeling about it, and it's a beautiful, nicely designed piece. So too, nice texture of trees, rocks, sky, and water. It's just it's yeah, it's got a nice feeling. Thanks for sharing that. Here we go. This one's a little harder edge though. This has really got you going on this one. I can see it's so heavily structured, right? Dark and light, and it's really got um I don't know what the word is. There's a real bite in this one. I feel, the recession of ice, and you know, is this kind of your environmental? Is this an environmental statement of some kind in your work? Or?
I was moved by this was going up to Alaska a few years back, but you can't go up there these days and not be so aware of the ice, the glacier melt, and what's not there now that was
Yeah,
not that long ago. So
yeah,
it is very cold, and it is toothy and minimalist color. It's harsh. I think I was feeling disturbed by what is no longer there and what we are responsible for no longer being there. So yeah.
Yeah, and all within our lifetime. I mean, really.
Yes.
It's the cap has shrunk dramatically. And I think they've actually measured and staked it out so people can see this is what it was like 5 years ago. This is where the line was, and now it's back here. And but I just love it. There's a nice brightness about them, but this jagged edge is like a torn edge of paper. It's just there's a piece there that is it gets it across, I think, very nicely. Yet there's that mountain in the background that's majestic. It's still there's hope in the piece, but you're just going, I don't know, but beautiful piece. I just so did you do some writing on this one as well? Is this in a publication somewhere? Or
No, I haven't done anything on the Western Canadian time yet.
Well, you got to get at it. It's receding as well. I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. And that turquoise and icebergs, so appealing.
Yeah. But on the East Coast with icebergs, you just said icebergs and that's a whole other love of painting. Like when you can paint ice and snow, it's such an anomaly to see this large chunk of ice floating by your house on the shore. Like, the next morning there's something different, and it's like this mountain just floats by, and it's so surreal. It just
you have an ever-changing landscape.
Always, and it's but like I said, it's very surreal feeling, and we're trying to get out to Newfoundland one day. I'm just trying to figure out I don't want to go there and just walk around. I need to go out there and do some work as well and take some time to do it.
So go out for a month and stay there and just situate yourself and take it all in.
As much as you can. Yeah, it's really hard to do it in one trip. But yeah. There's the first bear. We got a couple of bears to show. So how do bears influence you? Like where all of a sudden we go from this and then you paint.
Well, this is in it's in Northern Ontario. It's a polar bear rehabilitation rescue. So you could be fairly close to them. This guy was having lunch. So there was no danger involved in being too close to the polar bears in that experience of mine. So
okay. How far north were you when you did those?
I was up near my northernmost spot was Moose Factory. I stayed at Moose Factory for a while. Yeah. Yeah.
That was great fur country
this
in
was
the
Cochrane.
day.
This was Cochrane, Ontario. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. No, I didn't. Yeah, it's just he posed for you. Yeah. So what's he eating? Fish or is he?
Believe it or not, it's lettuce.
He's eating lettuce.
He's eating lettuce. Yes.
Wow. Didn't know that. He probably.
No,
I don't know.
I had no idea that they would take that
access to lettuce. I didn't know they had access to lettuce. Yeah, I thought maybe some kind of seal thing going on, but maybe not.
I'm sure that they get that, but this is, for whatever reason, this was a piece of lettuce. So I should have made it look more like a fish. It would be more realistic.
No, I like the lettuce because the story is there. I didn't know they'd eat lettuce. I know typically a lot of our bears will eat just about anything if they're hungry.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, this is Mama Bear.
There's a mama bear. This one's more of a grounded bear, not a polar bear. It's a black bear, probably.
It's a black bear and she had her cub with her. And I was at Willamette Canyon, which was moving up towards Thunder Bay. And I had just gone up to see the top of the canyon and came back down to my car, and there was the bear and the cub. And being a foolish person who did not stay bear aware, I took my camera and followed her a while until she turned around and kind of huffed at me. and
Yeah,
decided that was a foolish behavior on my part.
it was a foolish behavior, and
Great
bear,
photo ops,
yeah,
though. Great
bear,
photo ops.
yeah, bear aware is really important when you're out painting
Mhm.
in the wild. And it doesn't have to be that far wild anymore. The bear,
Yeah.
due to the amount of northern fires we've had, it's pushed the bear population south quite a bit. So we get all kinds of bear and stuff coming up the river and down the river now. So it's more so they're losing their habitat through logging and through fires and things. And you just got to be a little bit more aware when you walk out into the country, especially artists are so we get absorbed in our plein air painting. And I don't know if you're a plein air painter, but as much, but when you sit down and be quiet, stuff just comes around you. Like
Yeah.
the beaver come closer, the birds come around. If you're just quietly
Mhm.
sitting there, you turn around and there's a bear behind you and you don't even know you've been painting. They just sitting watching you, hopefully. But it's when you get up and you get startled, that's when stuff happens. Like if
Yeah.
you get caught between a bear and their cubs or whatever, you don't want to deal with that. But yeah, guess
What
what?
is the saying? Brown bear,
I don't know.
brown, brown, lie down,
Yeah.
black, fight back, white, good night.
Yeah, yeah. Your lunch. One of those ones. There's your white.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful bear. He's stalking you, actually, this one.
Yeah, that the right eye is so gentle, and the other one looks like it wants to kill you.
You are the lunch. Yeah. Well, have to remember that there is no anonymity as a human being. Your food, if
Mhm.
no different than a rabbit or a bird or whatever. You can be prey and be aware. I guess is mostly what we have to do about it. But
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think that
no,
was one of the things is when you live in Southern Ontario, Niagara Falls, you go north and you can be, unfortunately, a little naive about being safe. And I
yeah,
think that was a transition I had to make.
yes, it's I haven't painted a lot of animals. I did some early in my earlier days, but it wasn't really me. I found that doing portraits of animals was difficult. Capturing that moment of that animal, especially if you do portraits for people of their
Mhm.
domestic animals. It some people can nail it. Some people just have that sense of knowing the look of that cat or that dog.
Mhm.
Um, but I guess you're not when you paint a bear, you don't need to worry about that as much. I guess it's not the pet bear named Boo Boo.
No,
It
no attachment.
no attachments is the word we're looking for. Oh, there he is, the attachment.
I
There
know
you
the
go.
killjoy is here. By the way, that is my pet bear Boo Boo. By the way, so you did a great job with
Attachment.
that. So well, that was very cool. I like the work. I got to look at it earlier, so I got to appreciate it.
Thank you.
So
Appreciate
everybody
that.
else will. So my question is, and this is what I ask everybody. So what is your artwork from where to where, price wise? If somebody sees this and goes, I have to have a piece by Mary, what do they pay?
Well, the ones probably the 10 by 10s would be 150, 200, and goes up to around 2,000, 2,200.
Okay. There you go.
Quite
And Mary's
quite a
links will be
range.
below. Yeah, well, that's good. So we can have a range of different patrons.
Mhm.
That's very nice.
It's a
Very
good.
cool. No, I like your stuff. It's absolutely beautiful. So it
Thank
gives you
you.
that warm feeling, except the cold bear. No, I'm just kidding. Even that gave me a warm feeling. I liked it all. It was very pretty.
He's looking right at
So
you. Yeah, he's looking
I
right at
know it was. I go, boo boo, sit, and he didn't listen. So there you go. But anyway, no, it was gorgeous stuff. So thank you for being here. And if anybody wants to get a hold of Mary, all her contact details will be down below. If you can't figure that out, reach us here at the show or reach Paul um, at artistincanada.com, and he will put you in touch with Mary, and
you.
you can have Mary ship something to you anywhere on the planet. I'm assuming. So there you go.
We'll figure it out somehow. Yeah, we'll
There
get
you
some.
have it. Mary, it was a pleasure. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me.
No worries.
Enjoyed
And
it.
next Thursday, we'll be back with another exciting
Yeah,
artist. And don't forget, everybody, to subscribe and like. And we'll see everybody next week. Have a great day, everybody.
have a great day. Thank you.
Cheers.